This is a video on ecological land classification, and what I want to do in this video is just show you some of the definitions that go around the whole concept of ELC. So one of the things you can see that all these students here are fascinated with what they're doing, and they're studying the trees, and that's great. And that's what we do in ecological land classification. We certainly check out the trees and all the other elements with that, and that includes, of course, the vegetation, the soil below that, the trees that are there, and it even incorporates the type of climate that will influence ELC. So let's walk through some of the definitions and you'll see how it all comes to play. So first of all, what's very important is to figure out what is the purpose of ELC. And the purpose of ELC, there's basically two of them, and the first one is improve our ability to manage both natural resources and the information about those resources. It's a complex place, the ecosystem, and you know, we have everything from rock barrens to crevice and cave. We have sand barrens, we have grasslands, we have forested areas of be it conifer or even hardwoods. Okay, so we have a wide variety. This is just one page out of this out of the ELC book. So we need to really organize it, so when we talk about different types of sites, we can all talk about it in the same way. So that's what it's really a big part about, and we've introduced this concept to you at the Forestry Field Camp. So in Canada, ELC is a Canada-wide thing, and it is done in different ways across the country depending on the needs of that local area. And if you look at this little map here we have of Canada, and you can see all the very large different types of forest regions we have in the country. And within them we have even further breakdown by ELC. So ELC is not just, by the way, dedicated to Canada. It is also across the world in different formats, but still the concept is the same, trying to organize a complex ecosystem into categories. So here it's used across the country in slight different variations for the last 25 years, and the standards have been provided by the Canadian ELC. I would say the most complex one that you'll find out there, of course, is in British Columbia, and there it's called a biogeoclimatic ecosystem classification, and the short form for it that they use out there is BEC. And why is it so complex? Well, heck, when you got mountains and you have incredible range in from southern from Vancouver all the way up to Alaska, and you have mountains, which of course create lots of difference in elevation. You have an incredible range of biogeoclimatic ecosystems. In Nova Scotia, they use ELC. Okay, that's the standard. And in Ontario, we have both. We have ELC and we have forest ecosystem classification. And let's talk about why we have those two in Ontario. So in Ontario, basically what we have here is the ELC framework, and it's a standardized, first of all, as I told you before, it's a standardized approach in data collection, and those specifics are applied across the entire province. It is used with NERVIS, which is the natural resource inventory system we have, and it's linked to GIS for easier use, and that's important. So we want to link everything to GIS so we can find these places. And ELC is used by community-based data collection, and the goal is to make ELC mappable, like I said before. So far in the province we have about 1,500 of these plots, and we continue to get more. This is 1,500 plots, by the way, in site regions 6E and 7E, and that is basically Southern Ontario. So you wonder what the heck is 6E and 7E? Well, let's take a look what that means. In the province of Ontario, we have broken up the growing areas in the province into these categories. And if you've ever done any gardening, you may have heard the terms, this plant is good in this growing area based on its, for example, you can grow it in 7E, the most southerly point in Ontario. But for us, really our focus is for Southern Ontario. Is you can see here how 7E, the one area which is very much in Southern Ontario, that's where the Carolinian forest is located. It is a really unique forest. And then our area, which is where Fleming College is located, of course, is in 6E, and we're bordering close to even 5E. And as you go up more into the province, you can see how it is broken into different areas. Okay, and of course, the further you go up, the smaller the number. So that's kind of a way to remember how it works. So, where does FEC fit into the picture? FEC. So that was for the forestry focus, because naturally in the boreal forest, what we have is a focus on the forests in that area, because we have very much activity as far as forest extraction occurs, and we want to make sure we don't do any kind of permanent damage to the forest. So the FEC, there's different manuals, and what we have, if you're up by Thunder Bay, what there is the Northwestern Ontario. Okay, so the Northwestern Ontario FEC manual, and then we have the Central Ontario, and bear in mind there is overlap. Okay, and then there is the Northeastern Ontario, which is this area here. So these manuals discuss exclusively the species, the soils, the trees, everything in those areas through the specific FEC, which is a component of ELC. In Southern Ontario, what we have is the ELC, and that's what we use exclusively. We use that when we discuss this area here, which is Southern Ontario. Okay, so 7E, like I already have discussed, and 6E, that implies Southern Ontario for the ELC. Again, why we need to know this, if we all talk the common language to know where the heck is the growth areas, the growth regions. Okay, so first of all, there's a lot of verbiage that goes around with these ELC levels, and people throw around words and they don't really know and they're using them inappropriately. So first of all those things that I just pointed out to you, for example, if we look at site region, you're looking at things like, so forest, first of all, what is it? It's a forest that's influenced by climate, soil moisture, soil nutrients, and disturbance in a similar fashion. And climate has a huge component involved in this, and that's one thing you should not underestimate, is the influence of climate as you go more north in the province. Okay, and there are 13 regions in Ontario, but only 2, like we've already discussed, 6E and 7E, are in southern Ontario. And they are named 6E, but it's also called, and this is the area that we are, the Lake Simcoe Rideau Site region, which covers that kind of range across east-west. And the other one, which is the more Lake Erie, Ontario, okay, the Lake Erie area, excuse me, which is the southern portion of the province, the outmost southern portion, okay? So that is the first grouping of, and that's called site regions. Okay, those are site regions. Now, the next category down is called a system, and that's a fancy way of saying when you're looking at the area. And remember, ELCs are not just dedicated for forests; they're for all the different types of natural landscape that exist out there, and that's important to understand. So we could be talking about an aquatic system like a lake. We could be talking about something like a wetland. Is it a cedar swamp versus a black spruce peat bog? Or what we love near and dear to us is it a deciduous forest? Is it a red pine plantation? So on. So the 3 categories, the 3 systems that we look at are aquatic, wetland, and terrestrial. But of course, since we are the forestry types, we mostly focus on the terrestrial system. Okay. The next thing is, so we've gone from the site region, and then the site region is broken down to a system. Is it water, wetland, or trees, terrestrial? And now we're down to community class. Now we're even breaking that down further. So let's stick to, so this explains features in the community class. So for example, if you could be on ground, right? It's not wetland, it's not lake, but you could have on the ground, you could have forest, you could have barren rock, and some of you guys have walked over that in the City Kawartha Lakes region when you were doing some of your work for the course. It could be even a cliff. And you go, how can a cliff be an eco-site? Well, the Bruce Peninsula, the Bon Echo Cliffs, they all are very unique, right? And it could be even something like a sand barren, right? We're going to exclude marsh because that's for the wetland. So, or it could be tall grass prairie. So you can see these all break down into some kind of one of these items. And that's the idea of a community class. The next one that you have is called a community series. And now what you're doing is you're breaking it down even further. Break down community class into units normally visible on aerial photos. Now this is the part I want to stress. That's how they define it. So if you're flying, if you can look down from 3,000 feet above and you go, oh, okay, I can distinguish that, then it's called, we can break it down by community series. So for example, is it hardwood? Is it coniferous? Is it just shrub? Is it barren rock? Is it grassland? Something that's identifiable for certain from an aerial photo. So that's community series, okay? So you can see it can progressively gets more and more detailed as we proceed down this list of terms. Ecosite, that's where we're at, and that's usually where we do most of our work. When you're at forestry field camp, we were trying to identify an ecosite. So that's all the way down to here. Okay, so now it isn't good enough. It's a hardwood. We need more information than that. And so what we do is, the term means relatively uniform parent material. Okay, so whatever that may be, it could be a esker or something. Soil, let's say it's a sandy loam. and hydrology and chronosequence of vegetation. In other words, where does that stand at in regards to its development? Because we know that stands change over time because forests are dynamic. So based on this, and I remembered field camp, you gave it an FEC designation. Well, we can also do an ELC designation also, and that's what we're going to talk about. So in a nutshell, it is based on geology, soils, and vegetation. That's what makes and creates an ecosite. The next one, which is highly detailed, is the vegetation type, and we don't spend a lot of time there working with that one, but its whole focus is the finest level of resolution based entirely on the recurring plants. So what you're doing is you're trying to develop an ecosite based on strictly looking at the indicators of plants you would find. This works really well when you have rare species of plants which are highly sensitive and only can be found on particular sites. Then this system works well. If it's a lot of generic plants like bunchberry or sarsaparilla or brackenfern, they are not they are not good plants to identify. But if it's pitcher plant or something very rare or more specific to a site, then of course makes for easy ID. This is just some examples of in the manual for ELC manual that is used, and you can see here how it can be a tall grass. We have a forest. This is forest, okay, and so then it broken down to coniferous forest, and then the ecosite here would be this right here, which is called forest coniferous, and then the one, sorry, I wrote right over that, would imply the one would imply the dryness of the site. Okay, and this is forest mixed, and that's what FOM stands for here, forest mixed, and then the 7-2 would imply that, that it's a white cedar hardwood mixed forest. So there's many codes, and I'm not going through every last one of these, just to give you an idea how it works. So here we have, if you look at this one here, what we have is forest, okay, so we have here forest coniferous, we have forest, and it's broken down to coniferous forest, and then what kind of coniferous forest? It's a jack pine coniferous forest. And if you look down here in this here, in the manual, the ELC manual, we have dry jack pine coniferous forest type, and most jack pine is a dry site, and that code for that type of forest is forest coniferous 1-1, which states here, and I know it's very small print here, but what it's saying here is jack pine, okay, a dominant white pine, red pine, oak species, and red maple, more common associates, and maybe found that. And then it says here it's on xeric, meaning very dry, and moderately dry moisture regimes, typically on shallow soils over, and it goes either acidic, basic, or carbonate bedrock. Okay, and so it gives you an idea, very great detail in the manual, but the whole idea is that it discusses it, and then it has grouped the data in this ELC, much like an FEC. Again, the objective is for you guys to know what the heck those are, because you will encounter that as you travel across the country, work across this country. This is an exciting blank. Blank. Well, there we go. I'll put a circle here for you, and 0, and certainly note the yellow spot in the middle. Interesting. So there we go. All right, so I'll just move along. I don't know why that blank was in there, but what the heck. So, applications of ELC. I would say this kind of puts it in a nutshell. Depends on the scale that you look at the information. Again, a community class, when you're way up, and this is 10,000 to 50,000 scale, all you're trying to get at that high level is to look at watersheds and landscape. And then when you're looking at eco sites, which is what we did at camp, to 10 to 20,000, here you're looking at sub-watersheds and in more detailed community planning. In the veg types, you're looking at very specific, even species at risk level type of things. So that gives you an idea. So, and there's only one more slide left. And what I wanted to do is, who uses this, all this fancy stuff? And how do you fit into it? Well, it's used in park planning. For parks, they want to know where are the areas of species at risk, protection. They have to understand the habitat before they allow people to maybe invade that area, and they may want to consider wilderness areas and such, and the forest types that are maybe more rare or found. Forest management, here's a huge one. It gives you a good idea of, once you know what you have, you can do a better job of managing it when you extract wood. Private land ownership, that's another big one. Provides information on landowners in a standardized way so they can comprehend this very complex thing we call the forest. We want to restore biodiversity in this province. It's pretty good already, but we need to benchmark, are we improving the biodiversity or having less? Do we have all those more rare types of forest types, wetlands, cliffs? You know, those are really rare along the Bruce Peninsula, those where 400-year-old cedars are growing and so on. And of course, for research, and research is something that when it's done, we need to provide a common language between researchers of ecosystems in Ontario. So you can see here there's a wide range of reasons why we need it, and as you work across this country, you'll find ELC used in slightly different ways all across the country to make sure that we can do all these wonderful things. Thank you.